couple years ago, we were on an absolute ride with TCU. Thrilling finish after thrilling finish, all the way to the national championship game where it got so sideways. Georgia players were picking wings out of the floor level boxes and just eating stadium food on the sideline. TCU had a little bit of a big step back in 2023, but then had a nice close to 2024. Made the season certainly look a lot better than it felt at the middle of the year. Josh Hoover, a very promising quarterback. So for the Horned Frogs, now in 2025, over-under win total set at 6.5. Sonny Dykes certainly staved off any hot seat talk with the way that TCU turned their season around last year, but is 6.5 acceptable for TCU moving forward?
For another year.
Yeah, I think
gotta be right. Like I think it's one of those. I mean, you still have the national championship season, but I think where it gets uncomfortable is the fact of what Rhett Lashley's doing at SMU, what Texas is doing, making repeated runs to the Final Four. I don't think that helps his situation at all, but I think it adds a little bit of complexity to it. But I think at 6-6, I think he's fine. But I think he would enter the following season on the hot seat.
Yeah, I would think that it's somewhat hard to get a read on TCU simply because Gary Patterson was there for 20 years. So you don't really know how quick of a trigger they have.
Good point.
But I will say, like, Patterson had all those double-digit win seasons until 2017. Then 2018, 7 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins. And then it was in that 4th season where they pulled the trigger and they moved on. Sonny shows up, goes right to the playoff, 5-7, 9-4 last year. I think it would probably unsettle some people if it, like, the yo-yo keeps coming back, like up, down, up, down, up, down. I think that could probably bother some people. So if they're only hovering around that win total, maybe. But again, it's difficult to know. But it's also now we're in a situation where TCU's in the Big 12. You can spend money on players. Maybe some boosters will feel like they've got to have a quicker, they should be better than they are in the current landscape. So I don't know. I think he'd get one more year unless it's a terrible season, but I think there's more. I think the door's slightly open.
He also got a good extension in December of 22 after he took him to the national championship game. So my guess here is like that buyout's not going to be cheap.
I think, but again, I am going to assume that TCU has the ability to pass the hat and get that job done faster than a lot of schools that we've been talking about here in the show.
That's probably fair. Yeah.
Among Big 12 and ACC schools, especially. All right. What about this one? Oklahoma State over under 5.5 and heavy juiced under -188. I mean, that is the odds makers telling you that this is a 5-7 ass roster with a 5-7 ass like schedule. I mean, and for all of the success that Mike Gundy has had, even getting Oklahoma State to the Big 12 title game just a couple seasons ago, this has started to really get a little sideways on the Cowboys. So is there pressure there? Has he won so much that he gets to go out on his terms? Is there a desire to move on from Mike Gundy? This is probably one of the most interesting ones in the conference to me.
I mean, they were one of the favorites to win the conference last year and really fell flat on their face. I think the buyout is 25 or so. But he had a restructuring of the contract, so I don't know what it actually dropped the buyout to. 15. I mean, that's kind of doable, I think, right? Yep. For a power, like, that's not so insane now that you couldn't pay 15. But, like, I mean, they play Oregon in the non-con. Tulsa and UT Martin are automatics. You do host Houston. You host Cincinnati. You're at UCF. You should be favored in those games, I think. But, like, are you favored at Kansas? Are you favored at Texas Tech? You host Kansas State. You host Iowa State. You're at Arizona. So probably favored there or some.
Until Arizona, off the top of my head, snap call, I had all those as losses. All those games you just mentioned in a row.
And you host Baylor. And Baylor presumably will have its act together early, given that Robertson and the OC came back and didn't go to Oklahoma. So, I mean,
this is going to be his 21st season.
Yeah.
They went 3-9 last year. It was an awful season, but the year before they won 10 games. They've had backslide seasons, though not to the level that they had last year, and they've bounced back. I think if they get to a bowl game, he's 100% safe. If they don't, I think, well, A, we have to consider what does Mike say or do during the season.
Yeah.
That could lead to some problems. But B, I think they would give him another season, but he would probably enter 2026 in a very heavy you better win mode.
And does he want that?
That's the thing. I don't know if Mike is built for this new era.
That's what I wonder about. If he's one of the guys who comes out and's like, this is enough. I've had enough dealing with today's player. You put him in the, athletic department in some sort of role where he's an ambassador. So he's not doing nothing. He's still, because he's a lifer, this school means a ton to him. I don't think anybody wants to see him get fired. He doesn't want to get fired. So you kind of transition to some other role. That would probably be a scenario I could see unfolding. Remember this last year? The retirement talk was on the table. They asked him, he's like, my wife will never let me retire. She want me around the house, but I do think I don't see him coaching anywhere else.
No.
No,
so I think
his agent wanted you to think he'd be coaching somewhere else plenty of times.
Yeah, Tennessee, the number of times that Mike Gundy made a short list,
Plus, I was trying to find out. So, as his son, does he have everybody off the roster now? Like he had the quarterback son who was there.
Gunner is back on staff, I believe.
Okay.
But I don't think that we've got a Gundy. I don't know if we've got a Gundy playing right now.
Right.
Reworked the offensive staff. Remember, for the first time in a long time, that was a really big deal. And we'll see right there. A lot of comments in the tailgate referencing T-Boone, RIP. And they were saying T-Boone ain't walking through the door to pay that buyout. My counter, and I'm probably talking a little bit out of turn here, is that maybe T-Boone might have protected you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because of that relationship and sort of how coach and booster, benefactor both sort of saw that thing over the last couple decades be able to rise together. But TBD on that. Oklahoma State, definitely an interesting one to keep an eye on. All right. Let's see. Is Scott Satterfield in trouble if Cincinnati ends up 6-6 or 7-5?
I don't think so at that number. I think if you miss a bowl, yes. I think if you make a bowl, you're okay.
Okay.
It's his third year. You haven't been to a bowl yet. So I do think that if you get to a bowl, it's you've shown growth and progress. It'd be hard to fire him unless Luke Fickell gets let go at Wisconsin and is like, hey, I'm willing to come back.
Yeah. I don't think the NIL support there is great.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely lost some guys in the portal. Non-con, you get Nebraska, Bowling Green, Northwestern State. So that's probably 2-1.
I don't know. Eddie George's coming for that ass.
That Bowling Green staff wasn't bad though. I don't know. I don't think Eddie George is an upgrade over what Leffler had going there. In a vacuum, maybe, but I don't know. They weren't bad. BG, Leffler just wanted to get out.
Right.
So as far as your potential bottom of the league stuff here, you get potentially Houston, or no, you don't get Houston, right? You do get.
Hey, my pushback is that I don't think Houston's an easy W.
No, Fritz can coach, and they should be improved. You get UCF at home, UCF's very possibly the worst team in the Big 12 this year. I think
it's an Arizona UCF debate.
I think so too. But again, everybody in the Big 12, for the most part, I think is potentially the worst team in the Big 12 or the best team in the Big 12. The difference between these teams is very small, at least from the outset. Now there'll be some divergence there as shit goes sideways, but man, if you go 7-5 or 6-6 against this schedule, I think you take that. That's not that bad. That's not that bad. You're not spending like you have expectations.
I just mentioned Arizona. Their over/under win totals at 5.5. I think there was I know that we don't have necessarily robust Arizona football booster communities, I've got a friend who's a season ticket holder, and he can only tell me what it was like in his section. But it just seemed like very, very, oh no, we made a huge mistake, and that stinks because Brent Brennan did a good job at San Jose State. What does his future look like with a win total that suggests we're flirting with bowl eligibility?
Is Arizona a fire guy after 2 seasons type of program?
I don't think so.
Wasn't he cheap though? I want to say his deal was not that prohibitive.
Like they could have moved on after 1 year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think unless they're like winless, he's getting a 3rd season.
I do too.
Okay. Someone's got to take the losses in this conference.
Yeah, but everybody's going to get at least 4 wins at the same time. That's just the nature of the league.
After finishing tied for first place in the Big 12 standings, Colorado enters 2025 without Shedeur Sanders, without Travis Hunter, with a win total of 6.5.
That man's not on the hot seat.
I didn't say hot seat. We're just asking what the pressure, just taking the temperature.
No.
Who's applying any pressure to do?
Yeah,
right.
Nobody.
Himself?
He could have fired himself. What's he going to do?
Just talking about job pressure, Does 6.5 seem right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They lost 2 pretty decent players.
Oh, I was saying 6.5 could be on the high end.
It could prove to be like hype could be pumping that up a little bit, but I think 6.5 is fair for this league and the talent that'll be on that team.
What if he sails over it?
Oh my gosh.
Look out, Alabama. You got a new coach.
I mean, he could. Like the non-con is pretty manageable. Georgia Tech, Delaware, Wyoming. You start at Houston, which is probably still a bottom half team in the league. You get West Virginia, you get Arizona. You don't get UCF, but I mean, the schedule is very friendly.
Do you know what narrative I think I'm coming around on? What if Warren Sapp makes Colorado's defensive line great? Have y'all seen his press availability during spring practice?
Then he replaces Mario at Miami.
He's fired up, man.
That's what I'm saying. He's dialed. That is somebody who is very focused on the assignment at hand of trying to improve the play and the performance of this Colorado defensive line. And for a legitimate Hall of Famer to not just be looking at this as, something easy or just something to do to stay busy. It is very simply just a narrative I'm rooting for, Sapp's had his ups and downs, but being here and the opportunity to have a positive impact on Colorado's defense, I think could be cool.
I've got a rule that he's breaking that is a rule to live by. Unless your name is Mr. T.
No mohawk?
No mohawk past the age of 30. If there's a 3 in front of your name, you just can't rock the mohawk anymore. Unless you're Mr. T. He's the only one that can get away with it.
You've seen the same press availabilities that I have then.
Yes. And the press availability was awesome. I loved, he was talking about coaching up the young kid. Now he has to adapt. And he's like, hey, the way I was coaching him wasn't working, but I need these 3 things. And he's like, discipline, effort, and something else. He's like, we can work with all the other. I loved what I heard of it. I just couldn't get past the mohawk.
Sapp, I love it. I can't do this up here. Just
right.
Too distracting.
I do, because I do think he would be somebody that could be head coaching material. I mean, I think a lot of these guys are going not only just to coach with Deion, I think they have their eyes set. These are competitive guys like Marshall Faulk and Warren Sapp. They don't see themselves as bowing down secondary. They want their own, potential job someday.
Good point.
It'd be hard to go into that meeting with the mohawk.
So, in the tailgate before the show, someone brought up a name that honestly wasn't really on my radar in terms of job pressure. I thought that, I didn't think that Deion Sanders was going to get fired. I just think it was interesting to at least consider Deion Sanders' outlook and pressure in the wake of losing Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. But in the tailgate, somebody said Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. Again.
Oh.
Okay. So y'all's reaction is
No.
mine.
That's not the one I thought you were going to go with.
The win total's what, 8.5?
8.5.
No.
Okay.
If they go 8-4. They won the conference a few years ago.
I think that there is I think that is probably fan frustration in the midst of a season where you felt like literally just a couple bungled games kept you from really being a factor in the Big 12 title, the college football playoff, like those sorts of things.
That BYU game was an abomination.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Now, I know Avery got hurt, but like that was wild.
And it wasn't Kansas State the team that Houston jumped up and got? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I think that Chris Kleiman is not in any job pressure. Again, their win total is at 8.5. It is juiced under, but I'm not going to think that if Vegas is right, it's business as usual in Manhattan until somebody very close to that program tries to tell me otherwise. I know the last year had some frustrating results, but this is still very much an operation that is moving to the program standard.
You're 28-12 the last 3 years with a conference title. You're fine.
So
go ahead. Well, who are you going to say?
No. I was going to say Joey McGuire.
Okay. All right. So you think this is
I think if they go under, he's done.
All right. Over under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook of 8.5. Over plus 134. Heavy juiced under minus 164. So if Vegas is right and this is 8-4, you think that all that money is going to start to be like, okay, let's get in a proven winner?
I mean, look, if you pay like an upper half SEC payroll in the Big 12 and you go 8-4 with this schedule, I mean, their non-conference is Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State. So that's an automatic 3-0. I could coach Texas Tech with 3-0 against that thing easy, right?
So then you went 5-4 in conference play, and if
that
you're
means you're losing 4 conference
play,
games, and you don't make the Big 12 title game with a payroll like that. Like Texas Tech is the only team in this league I think has real like serious expectations because of spending.
Right, and they have a powerful voice that is making those, cutting those checks. There's a strong appetite to see Texas Tech as a perennial playoff contender. And they've invested in it. There's not only, they have the what you're talking about, the third-ranked portal class and the money that's going in the roster. There's also facilities that are going up that are insane, and you want to back that with a winner. So I'm with you. That's one I was thinking about too, Bud.
Yeah, I think that like that was number one on my list. Like for today, for ACC Big 12 combined, like I think he's the coach under the most pressure.
And returning QB.
If you lose 4 games with this schedule, with that kind of payroll, what do we need you for? Like I can get some, like just flip a coin, random coach in there. Probably going to do better than 5-4 in conference play with that kind of payroll.
Is it Cody Campbell? Is the name of the benefactor?
And the other partner, there's another partner too who plays
John Sellers.
I forgot the guy's name, but he just doesn't get as much media pub. But they're both like they've sold companies for billions.
Grant in the tailgate was asking if we were talking about Patrick Mahomes' checks. No, Patrick Mahomes is giving money to the football program, but we are talking about Ole.
Tommy Norris.
We're not talking about those losing the Super Bowl checks. We're talking about that Ole money, It
might be natural gas money, but it's all
natural gas money, energy money.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Somebody asked in the chat, what about Utah?
Oh, good point.
Which 7.5 juice to the under. Don't you think that means it's time to hand off the squad?
Yes.
I mean, Witt's there as long as he wants to be there, period.
Yeah. But don't you think it makes it more likely that he's like, all right, I've had enough.
Yeah. But it's going to be his call.
Yes. Agreed.
Reminder, Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator, has already been identified as the coach in waiting. Utah did not hold a national search before Witt was promoted, right? Yeah, I know that was like 2008 or something.
20 years ago.
Yeah. So it's like now we're going to be talking. Very good decision. Yeah, Utah. Interestingly enough, not really we don't even know how the Utah job would rank because we haven't even tested it against the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his first full season was 2005, so 20 years.
Yeah. Any other Big 12 jobs?
Christ, I'm old. That was 20 years ago.
I know.
Jesus.
Anybody?
I don't know. I'm having an existential crisis now.
I don't think any other Big 12 jobs is just scanning this, right? Or are you missing one that's obvious?
I'd grabbed Baylor because Dave Aranda was under pressure last season. And so if they were to fall massively short of expectations this season, maybe that starts to get a little bit more of a conversation. Maybe the pressure starts to build up. I mean, their win total is 7.5. That's That should be an easy number to hit.
Did you not read our boy Shahan's top 10 coaching combos between men's basketball and football? Baylor's a top 10 tandem. How could Dave Aranda be on the hot seat?
The only thing I would point here is, unlike Texas Tech, which is at 8.5 juice under, Baylor is basically 7.5 juice, kind of even.
Right.
Baylor has Auburn and SMU in the non-con. So like if Baylor goes 7-5 and Texas Tech goes 8-4, Baylor's finishing ahead of Texas Tech in conference play. Almost certainly, right?
Yeah, I think that all things in the Big 12 from a coaching perspective really should be judged by how close are you to making that conference title game.
Also with Baylor, I think the argument here is you say, hey, like you brought back Sawyer, you kept the OC, you do finish with Cincinnati, UCF, Utah, which is not easy, but is at home. They're a much different team than when they play up there in Rice-Eccles, at Arizona and Houston. So you are getting 4 of the 5 worst teams in the conference preseason ratings-wise. West Virginia would be the one they don't draw to end the season. So if this does go south down the stretch, it's going south to the teams that you don't think are very good.
Well, and you better hope that the whole team's locked in, everything's moving in the right direction, because, that'll be a coaching challenge if you take a couple lumps early, and something to keep an eye on for sure. All right.